Chapter 3. The Meryton Assembly. In the days leading to the long-anticipated assembly, much of the talk was of Mr. Bingley. Mary's 4 sisters took delight in pressing their father to give some hint of their new neighbour's appearance. Mr. Bennet, who enjoyed the sport, kept his counsel with steady humour and offered them nothing. Mary, however, made no inquiry. She sometimes listened with quiet interest to her sister's lively speculations, but gave most of her hours to the pianoforte, where she was at work upon a sonatina she had recently begun. The music demanded patience. Her fingers were learning the quick pearly runs, her ear was beginning to recognize the shape and balance of the piece. It was a kind of progress she could measure, and it pleased her. The music floated through the rooms with brightness, lifting the air of the house. Mr. Bennet opened the door just enough to look in. He did not linger, but said in his familiar easy way, "That sounds lovely, child." A few days before the assembly, Mary was at the piano intent on counting a troublesome rhythm in the 3rd movement. The lining up of the left and right hands was hard work that required finger dexterity Mary had not yet gained. She was forced to slow down and count aloud. She played the same phrase again, then made a few light pencil markings on the score. She tried again, then once more. She studied the bass clef, and sang the left-hand part aloud, trying to interpret its shape. Kitty and Lydia burst into the room almost at once, their faces alight. "You missed it!" Kitty cried. Mary, thinking Kitty referred to the passage she had been practicing, replied, "Well, I'm trying to get it, but it's tricky." "You are so foolish. No, Mr. Bingley just returned father's visit," Lydia corrected. "Mr. Bingley," Kitty beamed. "He was here not 10 minutes ago, in a blue coat, riding the handsomest black horse you ever saw." Mary's impulse was to dryly ask what shade of blue it was, but she said only, "Blue is a very regal colour." Mrs. Bennet arrived in the doorway, joining Lydia and Kitty. "Mary, what are you doing at that piano?" she asked, frowning. "You're playing that awful noise over and over and over. I can't imagine what Mr. Bingley must have thought." Her words pricked Mary. "I was practising, Mother. It is a difficult passage." Mrs. Bennet blinked, not quite understanding, and exclaimed, "Well, I wish you would practice something more pleasant. There is no need to repeat the same thing, it is very unnerving. Lizzie could have sung instead. Everyone enjoys hearing Lizzie sing." Mary rose abruptly and left the room, saying nothing. Her silence spoke plainly enough. The night of the ball had finally arrived, and the room was already crowded by the time the strangers arrived. There had been so many conflicting reports, 12 ladies and 7 gentlemen, or perhaps 6 ladies, that no one knew what to expect. When the door finally opened and only 3 gentlemen and 2 ladies entered, a hush passed through the room. Mr. Lucas, who had positioned himself conveniently near the door, stepped forward with a broad smile. He addressed the middle gentleman loudly enough for half the room to hear. "Mr. Bingley, sir, you are very welcome." Mr. Bingley, open and cheerful, stepped forward and greeted Mr. Lucas with a bow and easy charm. The room responded at once, welcoming, smiling, already shifting back toward merriment. Mary stood away from the entrance. She wore a plain dress, her hair pinned carelessly and without flair. She watched with a quiet, uncertain interest as the new guests arrived. Her sisters, gathered near the entrance, sparkled. Mary admired their confidence, but she had no desire to compete. The pianoforte stood along the wall, well away from the musician's place at the far end of the room. Mary moved towards it and pressed her palm against its cool surface. Touching the instrument gave her comfort. She was a little nervous herself about the uncertainty of the evening. Everyone had spoken of little else for days. Mary felt better here. She was not eager for introductions. In truth, she had little experience with them. At such events, if she was noticed at all, it was usually to be asked to play something light, something cheerful, familiar, and easy to dance to. As introductions were made, and conversation returned, Mary noted that Mr. Bingley seemed very pleasant. The 2 ladies next to him looked elegant and richly dressed. And there were 2 other gentlemen with the party. Both of them were unsmiling, and did not appear to be very interested in the evening. They were both well dressed, and one was taller with darker hair. Mary watched the taller gentleman. His eyes moved slowly across the room, deliberate and unreadable. He carried himself with composure but not warmth. There was pride there, not loud or theatrical, but steady. He looked as though he had already dismissed most of the room and was now confirming the decision. His gaze passed over the crowd until it stopped just briefly on Mary. He looked at her directly, only for a moment, then his eyes flicked down to her plain dress and away again. Mary looked down, blushing slightly, not from pleasure, but from alarm and discomfort. She knew the feeling of being looked at and measured, of being dismissed in an instant. She did not like it, and she understood this to be exactly what the tall gentleman had just done. From across the room the musicians resumed. A sprightly tune fluttered into the air, followed by conversation, laughter, the general hum of things going right. Mary stepped carefully away from the piano. Standing too long beside it now felt like a statement, one that she hadn't meant to make. She searched for a chair along the edge of the room. Somewhere quiet, somewhere no one would think to approach her. She found one tucked against the wall and lowered herself into it. She folded her hands and crossed her ankles. From here she could observe without being observed. The music was light and quick. She tapped one foot beneath her dress and tried to enjoy it. She wondered why she always took things so seriously. Why was it always so difficult to feel light? She could not seem to cherish anything, not even herself. Why was she no fun? From her corner, she watched the evening take shape. By most accounts, the assembly was going very well. Mr. Bingley danced with several partners. When he danced with Jane, however, Mary noticed a particular pleasure in his manner. Jane looked equally pleased, and the two of them seemed entirely at ease together. The other man, his name still unknown, had spoken to no one, as far as Mary observed. He stood apart, occasionally nodding, occasionally stepping aside, but never inviting conversation. He did not smile, he danced with no one. He seemed entirely content to remain apart. Mary wondered at that. They were both alone in this crowded assembly, but not in the same way. To Mary it seemed no one was aware of her, but everyone in the room was aware of him. "Trying to disappear," came a voice beside her. It was Charlotte Lucas. She had appeared without ceremony, as she often did, and sat down with a look of practiced calm. She was Lizzie's closest friend, often at the Bennet home, rational, honest, and more observant than most gave her credit for. "I find this spot effective," Mary said. Charlotte smiled faintly. "In case no one has told you, Mr. Bingley is with your sisters. I danced with him first. He is very agreeable and seems particularly attentive to Jane. Between us I think he may be smitten. The two women he brought are his sisters as well. The tall one in blue silk is Caroline Bingley. The other is Mrs. Hurst, married and almost too elegant for an assembly such as this." Charlotte pointed in the direction of the other gentleman. "Mr. Hurst is the gentleman already lingering too long at the decanter, on his second or third glass of wine, perhaps fourth." Mary asked, "What about the quiet gentleman? Who is he?" "Oh, that gentleman," Charlotte continued. "That is Mr. Darcy. He is a friend of Mr. Bingley's and I believe from Derbyshire. He is said to be very rich. I have heard little else about him." Mary glanced toward him again. "Mr. Darcy does not seem much inclined to conversation. People are calling him the most disagreeable man in the world," Charlotte said. "Look, Bingley is walking to him." Across the room, they watched Mr. Bingley approach Mr. Darcy and speak animatedly, gesturing toward the dancers, then to a group of young women nearby. Darcy's replies came in a few sharp final sentences. His posture was firm. Nothing about him shifted. Mr. Bingley's face hardly changed, but as he walked away he rolled his eyes. Charlotte gave a soft whistle. "That was interesting." Mary kept her eyes on Mr. Darcy. "What do you think he said?" Charlotte asked. Mary had a reply, dry and perfectly timed. "Perhaps he is telling Mr. Bingley what a lovely evening he is having." But she didn't say it. The words stopped just before her lips, trapped in that space where her thoughts often stayed. She only gave a small shrug, polite and unremarkable. Charlotte smiled. "I hope someone heard what he said." She stood, touched Mary's arm lightly, and slipped back into the current of the room. Not long after, Elizabeth crossed the ballroom. She didn't glance, didn't hesitate, just passed directly in front of Mr. Darcy with a small smirk, as if she had overheard something amusing. Mr. Darcy stepped aside to let her pass. His eyes followed her. His face didn't change much. But Mary, from her quiet distance, noticed that Mr. Darcy was having a difficult time not looking at Elizabeth. Mary studied him, then looked to her sister, now laughing with Charlotte. Lizzie was utterly unbothered. Effortless, entirely herself. Her sister was, without question, beautiful. More time passed, and the evening had become warm and noisy with movement. Shoes brushing the floor, skirts swaying, ribbons fluttering, voices rising. After dancing with several partners, Mr. Bingley asked Jane for a second dance. Mary knew enough to understand the significance of that. He seemed to give Jane as much of his attention as the manners of the evening allowed, while moving easily among the other guests. But Mary had seen enough. She stood slowly. Her mother's laughter rang out, bright, delighted, unmistakable. That did it. Mary was ready to go home, greet her sarcastic father, then retreat to her room and go to sleep. She stepped out of the ballroom and onto the back porch, where the yard opened up. It was dark, but there were trees and hedges nearby. The night air met her face with cool relief. The breeze raised goosebumps along her arms. The sky was dark and stretching and still. "There," she said aloud to herself. "That wasn't so bad, just a little uncomfortable." She walked a little, then sat beneath a tree at the edge of the path. She didn't need to go far, just far enough to hear less. Leaning her head back against the bark, she closed her eyes. Somewhere, someone laughed again, but from here it was less piercing. She listened, to the wind, to the quiet, to the stillness. She felt much better out here.